Thanks for joining us tonight for a Dreamtime Transmission. Hopefully, these dreams help you drift into sleep easily. I would greatly appreciate it if you liked and subscribed before you drift off. New videos are released every night, so join us tomorrow if you like. Thank you, and good night.
From Brilliant Match 1515. Okay, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google it. Also, I should mention I'm on Zoloft. So, it starts with Arthur Morgan, Dutch and Micah from Red Dead Redemption 2, planning on selling SCP-173, thinking it's some weird art piece. Well, when the guy they sell it to blinks 173 breaks his neck. Arthur and Dutch decide to put it back in the crate they found it in. Then I guess a time skip happens because Otis from back at the barnyard bought it on eBay. Later, Otis, Pig, and Freddy get rid of 173 by dumping it in the ocean. TLDR, my dream was like a really weird fan fiction.
From Don't Ask Me, Hey Surreal. Every night I get the same dream that rarely changes up a little bit. It goes like this. Me and my friend are going to the store, which is close to my school. We get some things. And then when we leave the store, it's already black outside and my friend disappears. I goof around by myself on the ice since it's winter and the road is icy. But then I just kind of teleport to a forest and it's still night. I walk out of the forest and I realize this is the area where I live. I walk for a while until I reach my street, and then I notice a man who has the eeriest expression on his face that I have ever seen. I can't tell what he is wearing. I just know it's all black. And he also has a dog who too has a very terrifying expression. I get spooked and then I wake up.
From Fearless Astronaut 96. For starters, I have totally only started to properly dream again in the past year. I smoke a lot of weed, so you know. But since my dreams have come back, they've all been based in the exact same fictional city every time. It's a weird mix of the city I live in and other place I've lived, but way bigger and fantasy-like. I have certain areas in the city different dreams will have events in. Sometimes the context is different. Maybe it's a zombie apocalypse, maybe it's a work dream. Regardless, it's the same universe. Personally, I really like my dream city, but I wish I could describe it when I'm awake. I can only really imagine it. Tell me about your dream worlds. From Skylantro. In my dream, it was midnight and I was going home. That day, I went on an adventure and I had to return home. When I sat in the rear seat of a carriage, exhausted, this shadow appeared next to me. It became a picture of me, and it started to speak with me. Don't come back home. They hate you and you hate them. It's not going to be good. Can't you remember the words they said to you? Don't forgive them. Don't forgive your father. Don't welcome his new wife. It'll hurt you. There I was, staring at my shadow self. I was hearing that shadow complain about me coming back home. It was yelling aggressively and speaking negatively fast, but I'm calm. My thoughts are wise, and they make sense. I patted the shadow on the shoulder and whispered, I know you went through a lot, and it was hard back then, but it happened on purpose. It's done now, and you need to move on. And after that, I keep searching the road. Now the shadow has calmed down. I can feel it. I'm not on good terms with my family. But when I woke up from that dream that night, I asked for forgiveness and forgave everyone around me who caused me pain. I'm on my spiritual journey right now, and this is why shadow work is a must.
From Handliker. I had a dream it was my birthday, and I went around doing birthday stuff. I was at Walmart buying stuff alone, and my headphones got stuck in the conveyor belt, so I had to buy some other ones, and the employee gave me a discount because the store was closing. Then I went out and went to my dad, and then we went into a store inside the plaza to do yoga with me. Him, my sister, and my sister's friend. We left, and it was suddenly day for some reason. And my sister and her friend were gone. My dad took me to McDonald's because it was my birthday, and he had gotten me my favorite sandwiches, but they were all soggy and infested with ants for some reason. So we went to another drive-by restaurant with fish, like carp and other types. We got 2 of the carp sandwiches they sold, and then we went to somewhere else that was sort of like a venue. We went inside, and there was a crab in a large aquarium that was like half the size of the room. All my family and family friends were there. We all talked, and then the staff of the venue opened the container, and washed the crab and brought him out to sit on my lap because he was chill. But when I tried to pick him up, he pinched my finger and ran off to my little sister. She held him, and then I had to go get the crab from her and sit back down. Then we went into a different room that was almost like it was outside, but there were walls. The crab jumped out of my arms, ran off behind a corner, and I woke up.
From Lovely Bird Lady. I have recently joined in this community and like to read many people's explanation about their experience in the dream. I have had the vivid and unbelievable dreams that I could remember clearly. I am also a spiritual and strong connection to the spiritual realm. I sometimes had the dreams to see the departed loved ones, and some who is related to my ex and my current boyfriend that I never have met in person, that they passed away years ago. They even gave me the messages and gave guidance in my physical life. I tend to listen to the messages or look out for the signs and follow what they want me to do in my journey. As I'm profoundly deaf, as please bear with my second language English. Anyway, this morning, my dream was so creepy, but it wasn't even bloody at all. As when the unknown man with a gun came inside my mom's or someone's house to look for me, but he tried to get close to the kids. I had to be quick to make them to run outside into the backyard, where it had the custom wood playground that was built for many years. But the unknown man tried to chase me with the Sig Sauer P226 and tried to shoot something to scare me. I was trying to dodge and kept looking at the children with the adults as they ran to the playground. I ran in the other way to make sure that the man wouldn't harm the children and adults. Then the man got very close and pointed the gun at me in point blank. I didn't move at all. I stood, stared at the guy, and didn't move at all. He didn't shoot me, as we were standing and looked at each other. I wasn't afraid at all, and was brave. Then the slow fade turned into the black, and I woke up very hot and very confused.
From Sen. As many of you know, brain research and technology has advanced exponentially in recent years. One niche that has been more increasingly explored has been methods of recording our dreams, or simply decoding brain activity. With the now explosive rise in AI technology and extensive applications of it, we could very likely see it take over dream research projects soon. AI could be the wild card to making seamless dreamlike outputs from brain activity based on the person's profile. This technique has already been pioneered before AI was at the peak it currently is at. So my question is, how soon do you believe we will see a dream recorder that produces a near-perfect representation of what the person dreamed? This isn't a guess for when this technology becomes commercially valuable, or debating any ethical fallout that could occur if we suddenly had perfect mind-reading technology. It simply is a guess for when we will check the news to see that the process has finally been perfected, and the first ever fully immersed dream has been successfully transcribed onto video.
From Mionamo. In this dream, I was in an old residence. A dog went over to a girl and it looked like it was biting her. I called to the dog and it ran around the top of the couch and began doing the same thing to me, but it was more of a lick, like pit bulls do. I woke up looking around because it felt very real on my ear.
From Nathan 11123. Hello. Every few months, I have a realistic feeling dream, either involving a nuclear explosion or the sudden news of war happening with a nuclear power, like Russia or China. Typically, no nuclear explosion actually happens, but there is some warning or announcement that a nuclear bomb is set to go off in a matter of minutes, and there is a dire need to evacuate. Once, however, I dreamed I was at work when I noticed a strange cloud of dust over the horizon, and then I was knocked back off my feet into a window. I was very slowly starting to get up in order to check if I broke any bones, when suddenly I was engulfed by a wave of heat and light. Then I woke up. That's the only time the dream actually involved an explosion. Sometimes, as I said, the dream involves war with a nuclear power. In one dream, I was walking with family in downtown DC. Although it didn't look like DC, it was more like the grassy knoll between campus buildings, stretching on infinitely. Then suddenly, a bunch of people were running in one direction, screaming in panic. And so we checked our phones and saw news that war had begun against Russia. What was particularly strange is that in the dream I remembered having multiple similar dreams in the past, but said, those were just dreams, but this is real, and if we don't act fast, I could actually die. What do you think it could mean?
From Awkward Mycologist 73. Recently had 2 dreams a couple weeks ago, taking place in my most frequent reoccurring locations, amalgamated dreamscape theme parks and museums. In both dreams, a girl I rarely ever speak to nowadays that I've known since middle school made cameo appearances. I don't think about her. I rarely ever thoroughly catch up, and I don't have any romantic interest in her. But in the span of these 2 evenings of dreaming, she showed up. So me being the speculative person I am, I decided to reach out and let her know. It's weird on the surface for anyone to straight up tell someone they've dreamed about them twice, or really in general, unless it's someone hella close, especially if it's someone they rarely ever talk to. But I figured fug it, why not Jay, to see if anything weird is happening on her end it too. Lo and behold, I find out she dreamt of me around that time too. And to make matters even weirder, it was also in a theme park. The same time I had a dream about her in a theme park. I tried to find out more, but no avail. Totally understandable though. Any rational person is going to be perturbed in finding out someone had the same dream above them in the same location at the same time. You say, how do you make sense of that shit? Beforehand, I was going on a rabbit hole internet investigation into Stargate and came across a 30-page declassified document on the intro material into mind reading, gateway process, and the step-by-step process into it. Orally freaky stuff for those that aren't aware or haven't looked into it. And I don't recommend it to anyone already having paranoia with discerning what's real and what isn't in reality. A lot of materials talk about having weird dreams, the further you look into this kind of stuff. I was skeptical at first, but since finding it I've been having recallable dreams non-stop since. Anyways, this ever happened to any of you guys? What does it mean when it happens? Anyone think this ties in with looking into the doc? Asking for a friend?
From Fully Feral. Has anyone else experienced this? I used to have what I'm assuming is a sleep disorder, where dream imagery would bleed over into reality when I woke up. A 7-foot alien standing in your bedroom doorway holding a singing lotus, for instance, is not what you expect to see when you open your eyes, and it shouldn't still be there after you blink twice. It was usually related to the dream I was waking up from, plus whatever is happening in reality. For example, I had been talking to that alien in my dream for what felt like hours. The singing from the lotus was actually my alarm going off. I couldn't discern that until it lifted, and then I would just sit there, kind of stunned. Another time my mom had come in to wake me up. It was before the sun was up. She was wearing a red-white striped shirt, and when she entered the room, those stripes expanded across the room and wrapped around the walls. She turned the light on right as my cat walked in. The stripes shattered and fell to the ground like broken glass before disappearing. It never freaked me out or scared me, just made me question my sanity occasionally. It faded in my late teens and hasn't happened since. Anybody know what this is called?
From Minimum Living 459. I was half asleep this morning after sticking heating on, jumped back into bed, then literally instantly fell asleep. Now, what I dreamed was something I have never seen before. It was basically a huge wall of plasma, as far as the eye can see, heading towards us from the sun, which I could barely see. I have never had anything like this before. It felt so realistic. It was too weird. What does stuff like this mean?
From Artistic Leopard 7991. I had this weird dream that I was touching myself and it was pretty intense. When I woke up, I realized it was a dream. I've been trying not to succumb to those things, but I can't believe I had that dream. Anyway, I did act on it, but it wasn't nothing like my dream. Quite scary, really. Has anyone else had a weird dream before? It can be of anything, of course. P.S. And I'm not a troll. I just hate having dreams that appeared to be so dramatic. I also had a dream that my recent ex took the engagement he bought and married my best friend. I woke up really hating him. Smeesh. From Seeing 2592. Last night was the second time I had this experience. The first time was about a month ago. When I first fall asleep, I'm not sure if I'm dreaming or in sleep paralysis, but I am in my room. I can move my legs and arms, but can barely move anything else. I see visions and spirits all around my room. They are talking non-stop. I can barely make out anything that they are saying, but it is a lot of talking. Last night in this dream, I tried connecting with my dad, who has passed on. I suddenly felt a clench in my brain, kind of like a brain freeze, and he was showing me words. I couldn't make out everything he was showing me. I kept seeing visions of a man in a black shirt coming in and out of my bathroom. There was also a man standing at the doorway, staring at me for a long time, talking to me, but I couldn't make out what he was saying. I saw visions of my childhood pets, my cats, and my yellow lab. This is the second time this has happened to me. I've had sleep paralysis before, but not where I see spirits. This feels different than sleep paralysis. If anyone has any ideas or advice, that would be great.
From International Rap 244. Just had the creepiest convo ever. Long story-ish. A couple years ago, my daughter at the time, 8, and I, 27, were living in a newer 2-bedroom townhouse, stayed for a year. My nephew stayed on my couch for a short while, and my dad stayed for a while as well. I began having nightmares at some point while living there. I was an officer in a hospital and worked frequently with homeless people and mental health patients. May be relevant, I'm not sure. My nightmares were of this very large man wrapped in a blanket, but he was always in the dark. It was always very vivid dreams of him being in my house. Sometimes I could hear my dad talking, who wasn't there at the time, and sometimes I would run down the stairs and check on my nephew. It's kept getting more weird. He would be in my closet or the upstairs hall. At one point in a dream, I could see his figure in my doorway, and I reached for my phone, which dimmed out and died. Same with the iPad and smartwatch. I was freaking out. I remember running down the stairs, chasing him, to watch him vanish, then standing at the bottom, shouting for my daughter, and completely losing my shit. Apparently, it never happened. My daughter just told me that she had a nightmare this summer of a large shadow invading our home. Now have BF and larger home, and me shouting at someone and freaking out, and my BF also losing it. She said she was paralyzed, and this shadow, in anime style, was hovering over her. Now, what she described was basically her perspective of what I was seeing. I texted this dream to a couple of people. If I find it, I will share.
From Ghostface San. I had a dream that I was in a city with a lot of historical buildings, and I can't remember, but I think someone special to me was there with me. And there was some sort of curse happening, where college students' faces were turning into dark masks that kind of looked like statues. And I was asked, not directly, to figure out why it was happening, but I think I remember seeing one of their faces turn into one of the mask things. And then I woke up.
From Cat's Tattoos, I just napped from 8 to 11:30. It felt like the whole time I was stuck in this lucid real-life nightmare. It's not like horror scary nightmare. My boyfriend of 7 years called me in my dream and was telling me he just doesn't like me anymore. I tried hard to have one last meeting with him, but every time I tried to drive over some shit went terribly wrong. I don't know why I feel so affected by my dreams once I wake up. The feeling just lingers for so long. Sometimes I hate it, with this dream. These vivid dreams happen so much every night, it's exhausting. I feel like I'm living another life. Sometimes it's hell.
From Thurasaz Uriskors. I had a dream that I was back in prison. I was armed with a razor blade and an ice pick. Anyway, a bald white man approached and engaged me. I assume he was Aryan Circle or Brotherhood based off of that, but his energy felt like a cop. Anyway, I cut him several times and saw no blood. The whole time he kept asking me why I wasn't afraid, to which I responded with no words, just a smile. I was detained and sat in front of a council of dudes at a table. One of them was my father. I despise my dad, but that's neither here nor there. He is an accomplished mage, as it comes with his profession. I'm assuming he, like everyone else, wanted to know why I was so comfortable around edged weapons. This is a recurring theme in Waking as well, as I have been asked through various sources and means if I have military training, which I always answer truthfully. No, I have not had any military training. Private training, however, I've had over 2 decades of apprenticeship and competitive knowledge. So what does the dream mean? Is this some form of communication from a group of mages? The government? Or my subconscious? Maybe all of the above?
From definitely not kelp, I had a dream a few nights ago. I was in an apartment I don't recognize, but was mine, and I had a baby. I was rocking her back and forth when I noticed fire coming from under the front door. I ran to the closet, pulled out a drawer that had laundry in it, and placed her in it. I put her in the closet, and I shut the door. I wait for the fire to burn out, and when it does, I open the closet. I woke up immediately after I saw a very vivid image of my baby burnt to a crisp. When I woke up, I genuinely felt like I lost a child. I've never had children, but I feel like this dream could have a meaning. IDK. From Revolutionary Fun 3886. Hello. I had this dream back in February. It was about me and this person I knew but hadn't spoken to in 6 years, walking up a golden staircase to heaven. We were both staring at each other while walking up the staircase. It was one of the most vivid dreams I had ever had. Then 1 week later, IRL, my husband asked for a divorce. It was hell. You see, we have 4 kids, and I won't get into what he did, but it was hell. A month later, the person in my dream reached out to me and we started talking. Except the weird thing in the dream was he was a famous celebrity. I used to think this person reminded me of the celebrity / looked like him. Thoughts?
From Big Grizzle 69, I was in a flat white plane with a blue sky above, watching the clouds. I laid there for a time before I noticed it wasn't just clouds. There were the heads of various animals appearing on the clouds. I recall lions, foxes, owls, bears, elephants. It was extremely varied, but I know I recognized those ones. The clouds were rushing this way and that way at a pretty quick pace. The relaxed nature of the dream was still present, but I got a bit paranoid with the idea that maybe these cloud animals were watching me. So I stood up and started walking a random direction, still watching the clouds above me moving so quickly. So it started off feeling relaxed. I saw the animals and how fast the clouds are moving. And here now, I was still fairly relaxed. I was just a bit worried about why a bunch of animals were running about overhead. Suddenly, the dream palette swapped, where the flat plain and clouds were white and the sky blue. Now the ground and clouds were blue and the sky was white. I'd looked at the ground to make certain it wasn't water and that I'd remain grounded. It was solid. Then when I'd looked back up, the clouds were no longer animal clusters, but rather giant blue jellyfish swimming about the sky. I remember one getting really low to fly past me, and the sudden appearance of them and how close they got startled me. I tripped onto my ass, but the jellyfish simply passed by and returned higher, and I sat there watching them. What paranoia and worry I'd felt had passed, as I now realized that the jellyfish were just vibing, and I just remember becoming weirdly happy. Then I awoke.
From Ulysses Rosa. Hey, so I've always had sleep paralysis. Sometimes it's terrifying, but sometimes it's transcendental in the most beautiful way. I wanted just 3 experiences that have stuck with me and will forever be in my psyche. 1. This one was the scariest one. I woke up from me sleep and I was completely paralyzed. I could only look at what was above me as I was laying in bed, unable to move or breathe. What I saw was to this day the most horrifying graphic image that nothing in life could top. It was a hairless, naked man covered in blood from head to toe, and he was shaking violently as if he was convulsing with white foam coming out of his mouth. He had completely black eyes and looking right into my soul. I felt my body starting to levitate out of my bed towards him, like he was pulling me towards him so he could devour me, and I was absolutely helpless. As I kept levitating closer to him, I myself started shaking, and I felt as if I was being possessed by a demon. With the little strength that I had, I looked over to the side of the bed and saw a very clean man dressed in a white robe, and he just said, "Remember that you are love." As soon as he said those words, I looked back up at this demon and started reciting those words, "I am love, I am love." And slowly, this demonic entity started to decompose and disappear right in front of me. As soon as he was gone, I could start moving my body again, and holy, I have never been so scared in my life. 2. This one was such a beautiful experience. So I remember that I was in a state where I knew I was awake, but my eyes were shut and I couldn't move my body. Body was asleep, but I was very much aware, and my visuals were going wild. I was in some kind of space shuttle made of glass, and I could see Earth below me. I remember looking to my left and right, and I could see so many people in this space shuttle also looking down at Earth. I recognized some of the people. Some were family, other friends, other were strangers. Anyways, there was a red light that was turned on, and we were waiting for the light to turn green so we could jump out of this space shuttle down to Earth. I remember when it turned green, my sister turns to me and says, "Are you ready? It's going to be a good life." And we jumped down to Earth to live our lives. This was a wild experience to me because it was so vivid and it felt so profound, as if it really did happen. I always think about that and how we could be souls that just jump into Earth to experience life. 3. This last one was interesting because I felt that I had been visited by an ancestor. This time I was asleep, but I was aware in my dream, and I know when I get sleep paralysis because I get goosebumps and I have that feeling of dying almost. It's creepy, but you get used to it. Anyways, I'm looking at myself in the mirror, and I'm in my 50s, 60s. I'm currently in my late 20s, and it's the first time I have vividly seen myself at a much older age. I had lots of grey hair, but I looked damn good, not gonna lie. And behind me, I see old family members, all whom have passed, and they're just looking at me and smiling and making me feel very comforted. And one of them, who I believe was an ancestor from the 17th century, by what he was wearing, tells me, "We get to live through you. You are us, and we are you." And as soon as he said that, my eyes opened and literally sat up on my bed and was freaked out, but also it felt so familiar. One thing I love about sleep paralysis is that when it's a good experience, there's a sense of being home. It's hard to explain, but in life, I never quite have that exact feeling. That sigh of relief and feeling, yeah, I'm home now, and it's forever. Would love to hear some of your experiences and what you guys have learned from them.
Hopefully, you aren't hearing this message because you are asleep, but if you are still awake, I would like to thank you for joining us for tonight's Dreamtime Transmission.